The Open Budget Survey is the world's only comparative, independent and regular assessment of transparency, oversight and public participation in public budgets in 120 countries. The executive director of the IPPR, which conducted the research for Namibia, described the mitigating factors that caused the country to fall 9 places in the global ranking of budget transparency and accountability.
So Namibia unfortunately went down on this. Our score is now 42. Whereas in 2019 it was 51. And a score of 61 is considered the minimum threshold to foster informed public debate on budgets. And the global average is 45, so we're now also a little bit below the global average. So Namibia published 6 of the 8 required public documents within the time frame set by the survey by the end of 2020. And the dip in our score, I think, is primarily due to the problems that we had in 2020 with the budget coming quite late to Parliament at the end of May because of what happened in March with the arrival of COVID and the fact that it was difficult to get Parliament going and into session in that time. So I think there are mitigating factors as to why the accountability report that normally comes out with the budget documents was more than 12 months after the period that it assessed. So perhaps we shouldn't be too harsh on that issue. And then the Auditor General's generally has been a problem in terms of the timing of the release of its report, particularly the overall report, the summary report on government finances. And that was published so late, more than 18 months after the period under consideration, that it wasn't even in this survey considered to be published.
According to the IPPR, the Finance Ministry also missed the deadline required for the Open Budget Survey to hold budget consultations with civil society and other sectors of the public, affecting Namibia's performance on the survey's public participation component, with the country receiving a score of 0. Professor Andre Dupisani, an academic and board member of the IPPR, urged the government to consider civil society's right to participate in the budgetary process.
Civil society has every right to participate in the budgetary process. And that framework has been coming along, as we all know, since 2005. There's been cabinet approval for policy, there's been all sorts of iterations, but it's not in place. So maybe this could be an opportunity also to bring that to bear to our decision makers, especially also the Ministry of Finance. The other point is the oversight of Parliament. And I think there's a body of research indicating that our system of parliamentary democracy is fairly flawed and it is weak. And that even if we have the bicameralism that we have with the National Council as a House of Review, the impact of that is very limited in real terms. So there's work to be done within, as Graham suggested, within Parliament itself to strengthen parliamentary committees to make sure that their remits are actually exercised and properly executed, including the remit to engage members of the public and civil society on key matters.
The Ministry of Finance did conduct budget consultations with civil society and other sectors in 2021, but unfortunately, this was also outside the time frame required by the Open Budget Survey, which had a deadline of December 2020. Hopwood recommends that Namibia can improve its rankings by submitting its budget proposal to Parliament at least 2 months before the start of the budget year and allowing the budget proposal to be scrutinized by a standing committee.